Your standard Hyundai Kona is not what I would call a looker. It's not bad, it's not great either. One thing that can help an automaker punch up its car's looks is when they pretend it's a rally car. Hyundai is doing that by slapping some N badges on a handful of models. And here on the Kona N, it's working. So Hyundai is basically turning the Kona into a taller Veloster, and visually, I think it looks pretty cool. Dare I say, I think it looks even a little bit better. Compared to the standard Kona, of course, it's quite a bit more entertaining in the looks department. You have a more aggressive face. I still don't love the split light treatment, but the rest of the nose with all its grille work and active shutters, plus the red accent trim, looks good. The fenders all sit out nicely and the 19-inch wheels fill the space perfectly. Out back, you even have some more fun design bits going on, like the rear spoiler, the diffuser, and the exhaust, which we will talk about more in a minute. Inside, the Kona N is definitely a subcompact, but there's decent room to be found. The seats are great and well bolstered. Ahead of the driver, you'll find a crisp digital gauge cluster plus a head-up display. Meanwhile, the large 10.3-inch screen in the center is easy to see and displays great information, especially when you want to tweak all of the N settings. Speaking of N, this Kona packs a fun little punch. Under the hood sits a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's good for 276 horsepower and sends that power down to the front wheels via an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission. There's also an electronically controlled limited-slip diff up front as well. So I mentioned the exhaust note. It's got a fun tone. And then when you let off, you can hear a little bit of a burble, but it's not too much. And you can back it off if you want. It's a fun, playful amount of burbleness going on. And fun and playful is kind of the name of the game here with the Kona N. I mentioned that we've got 276 horsepower on tap. And then if you want to tap into a little bit more, there's actually a button here on the steering wheel. It's a red button with the letters NGS. Now the name of what this button does is stupid. It's called the N-Grin Shift, and I feel like it's a lost in translation moment, and if it's not, regardless, just call it something else, because what it is a temporary overboost function that gives you 10 more horsepower for 20 seconds. So we're going. I'm gonna hit the button. It juices up, and then it has a little countdown showing you how much time you have left, and then once you've used it once, you can also turn it off if you want, but once you've used it once, I think it needs about 40 seconds until you can use it again. So it would be fun and it would make sense to use it on a racetrack, an autocross course, something like that, where you're like, oh, I'm on the straightaway. It's like a silly version of DRS for a second. And instead of aero-based, it is a little bit more horsepower. Now, since we're sending all that power down through the front wheels, there is occasional moments of torque steer, but the diff does a good job of sorting it out for the most part. Where you noticed it most often is if you're at a full stop and you have the wheel turned, you don't have to be full lock, but if you, well, I'll show you right here. I'm at a stoplight, I'm gonna take a U-turn, and when I get the green, I could feel it start to go. I lifted off, traction control stepped in too. So there's definite torque steer to this, but it's very difficult not to have torque steer on a vehicle like this. But as far as the handling does go, there's good heft in the steering wheel. I wouldn't say there's a ton of feel in terms of knowing exactly what's going on, but the heft feels sporty without going too far into the artificial zone of just weight for weight's sake. It's close to that, but it's not there. And then when you do need to slow down, this thing has great brakes. The front rotors are over 14 inches, which is massive on a subcompact crossover. With respect to the suspension though, if you just hit the N button, there's 2 N buttons on the steering wheel. One cycles through the different drive modes, but if you just want to go straight to N, there's another one on the right side. Now with that button, you can also enter customizable modes, but in the N mode, where everything goes to its sharpest sensation, engine, steering, suspension, transmission, the LSD, traction control, and the exhaust noise, the suspension damping is too firm in the highest setting. It doesn't need to be that way. So I like to drive this vehicle in custom 1. There's 2 different custom settings where I set everything to the most aggressive and then suspension to its softest. And it is a great blend of having fun, enjoying the car, and not getting punished at the same time. It's weird that I want to take a Hyundai subcompact crossover to a racetrack because I just believe this thing would be a ton of fun. A front-wheel drive, subcompact crossover, and I know I would have a blast. Despite me making fun of the N grin shift button, I definitely would be grinning. It's not cheap, but relative to what you might consider it competing against performance-wise, it's really a relatively good deal. The base price is just over $35,000, and the only options are a handful of accessories. The exhaust note is a bit brash when you want it to be. It looks fun just sitting still, and it's priced relatively right in this day and age of outrageous window stickers. This thing is an affordable, fun blast of a little machine.